Hey folks, this is Don from the East Street Studio, and I've got a workbench video for you. And this week I'm just gonna show what I've got on my workbench. I finished up my Hazelberry organizer for the Woodcraft board game. That took me a couple of months of iterating and experimenting and fixing stupid mistakes, especially fixing the stupid mistakes. I made a lot. I learned my lesson on a couple of things anyway. But that turned out awesome. But now I'm free to work on a couple of new things, so I even got a little bit of painting in this week. So let's go look what we have over here on my horizontal surfaces. Alright, so my workbench starting to look lived in. Since I got everything moved in here. The walls are a little bare, but the horizontal surface is not. I got all kinds of stuff going on. I got these miniatures from Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth, and some of the expansions. I really like the miniatures for this game. Maybe more than the game. The game's a little bit fiddly, and the cards are small. I have trouble reading them. And the app, I spend a lot of time looking at the app and fussing with the tiles, but once it gets going, it's a lot of fun. But anyway, I've been using different. I just have some Army Painter white primer on here, and I'm just using some different washes and inks that I have for flesh to give them a variety of flesh tones so they're not all the same. I kind of went a little ham on this guy, but I could probably lighten it up later. I've also been working on and off on these. These are from the Brown Coats and Brigands game, Firefly. I love these models too. It's nice to be painting something that's not just fantasy based, although this kind of fantasy western, sci-fi western. But I tried something a little different on these guys. I did the white primer, and I used this right over the white primer, the Army Painter Strong Tone Dip. Just dipped them right in there. It's usually intended to be dipped after you do the base coat colors, but I figured I'd try something new, and it's actually working. It's pretty cool. It gives a very nice gradient of dark to light in the recesses. See, this one here with the coat is pretty much what it looked like without any colors. Same with this guy's jacket. And then over top of these, I'm using some colored inks, transparent inks. And they give a really nice gradient. They let all that stuff show through, but still give a nice bright color. It's a little bit shiny because of the dip, but I can go over that. I'm going to leave it on this guy's vest, so he'll have one of those shiny plastic puffy vests. I almost used this technique on the rest of these Lord of the Rings minis, but they would have kind of clashed with the ones I made already, that I painted already, like these skeletons. They're using a more normal base coat wash highlight method. So, but I am definitely going to use this transparent ink over the dip again. It's fun, actually. I like using these inks. I've been experimenting with them more. I use Vallejo game ink. I'm a big fan of Vallejo paints. Let's see. I'm also working on some board game upgrades. This one here is for this war of mine, which is one of my favorite games. I mean, it's an amazing game. It's a little bit harsh and a little too real sometimes, but man, does it tell an amazing story and get you to look at war in a different light. But anyway, there's all these. They have hunger counters and misery counters and fatigue counters, which might give you a little bit of clue of how the game goes. But they're cool counters, but they're a little bit awkward because there's four different levels of each, and so you have to use 2 of each. There's a lot of futzing around with them, and there's 5 of them for multiple characters. So I wanted to make some improvements, or ones that were easier to handle. So this is what I've come up with. Is like a 4-sided counter that you just spin down. These dots line up and tell you how many actions you get for each turn. So these are turning out great. I had a few prototypes. This is the first one I made on my resin printer. I thought I'd do a 5th side and leave the top blank for when you have the rare occasions when you're not hungry or whatever, but it just got awkward. And the resin turned out to be a bad choice, although it does feel nice. And this was the first one I made with the normal finger joints that I've used for most of my boxes, but it got too visually busy with all those finger joints in a small space, so I redesigned to do these, and they're working great. I just have to make the rest of them now, and I'm probably going to paint them to match these colors, or at least similar. It's a lot of pieces, though. Again, this is 120 pieces for a full set of these, because there's 20 of them. And I tried to make a little jig to put these together, but this jig did not help that much. It just kind of made it harder. I might rethink this and try it again if I end up making a bunch of these. So that one's going good. It's almost done. I just have to put them together and get a final version for photos and run it through a few games, but I'm happy with these. So I've also been working on some upgrades for Hoplomachus Victorum, the new solo game from Chip Theory Games. So of course, lots of fancy chips and lots of chips with information stuck all over them. And there's these status tactics that you use that can sometimes maybe stun your guy or give him an ongoing effect, like hamstrung, where he can't move or attack at the same time. And there's also these other arena chips, like a trident or this flag. And while I was playing, I sometimes got confused as to which was which. So I thought maybe I'd try making some transparent chips to go over the top to mark the status. And so for the first time, I cut some acrylic on my laser cutter, and it actually worked surprisingly well. I was really surprised at how cleanly they cut, and where are those ones with the chip sides, and how nice the engravings are. But it also turns out that they're so transparent, they kind of disappear on here. Especially the ones I tried with some text. They were really very hard to see, mostly because there's so much going on these chips anyway. This one is not bad, but it still kind of disappears on the board. The ones I tried some with some colored edges. That helps a little. I'll probably do that on the next experiment. But the best thing I tried was just getting more contrast. I'm going to put some black paint on the back and white on the front, and they really stand out this way. And it'll definitely help. I've got another design where I'll engrave on both sides. I'll engrave a little pad back here for the paint, and the other side will be the text, so it'll be nice and crisp. And I think I have a trick figured out for flipping these circles over without losing the proper orientation. Alright, so that's what I got going on my workbench this week. I'm having fun. These things are turning out great. I'm making progress on these markers for Hoplomachus, and I'm finding some time to paint. So if you have any questions about anything I talked about or showed, or like to see any of the techniques in more detail, just let me know. I like to make tutorials sometimes. It helps me learn and cement the things that I've learned, and usually learn something new from the questions I get. So feel free to speak up if you're interested. And I'll see you next time on my workbench.